Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana. Today is Rapid Fire Friday. So if you've got some questions, we hope that you will consider calling in and asking us. The number, if you want to get in the call queue now, is 610-363-1110. And you're going to want to get in early. We have a special treat planned for you at toward the end of the show today. So call in early. You're going to get something if you do. What are they getting, Seth?
I don't have it with me right now, Shana, but it's our Spineless Weasels Tumbler. We'll actually talk a little bit more about that possibly today and then later on this week. But as election season is approaching, Shana, it's really upon us now. We want to make our voices heard about the spineless weasels in both sides of the aisle. I mean, Dan was an equal opportunity criticizer. So are we. So I will have a visual aid for that in the next segment there. But it's a great product. Spineless Weasels Tumbler. Yep.
We just wanted to see your face.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
All right. So on today's show, we're going to make sense of this week's headlines in the know section. We're also going to have Debbie Wuthnow. She is with IVoter Guide, and she's going to be joining us later in the show. Of course, we're going to get to your calls and the questions. Calls 610-363-1110, and we have a list of questions that listeners have already sent in. So at Financial Issues, we help you to stay in the know about the financial issues of the day because we want to help keep you abreast of what's happening in the economy and the markets and help you understand how that impacts your own personal financial issues. So here are a few takeaways from this week's economic news. Retail sales numbers came out this week. September core retail sales rose 0.7% month over month, above the estimate of 0.3% after rising 0.3% in the month before, which was left unrevised. How convenient for the Harris campaign, who is not Joe Biden and only the less powerful VP. That's why she couldn't get things done during the last 3 years, but couldn't think of anything that she would do differently. More double talk. So the anomaly in retail sales lies in the core figure. The miscellaneous category led to the gain of 0.4% month over month jump. Miscellaneous category includes convenience stores, pet stores, dollar stores, and others. Sales of necessities also led the way with 1% gain in food and beverages and health and personal care. Couldn't have anything to do with higher prices that consumers pay, I suppose. On the downside, sales fell for things like furniture, down by 1.4%, and electronics, down for the third month by 4%. By 3.3% month over month. It will be interesting to see how these numbers of retail sales get revised post-election. But for now, the current administration can enjoy the warmth created by the gaslighting of the American people. In housing news, Americans, especially those chasing the American dream of home ownership, are still having a hard time turning that dream into reality. Kamala Harris in her campaign speaks rightly about the need for new homes to be built, but misses the solution by miles. We do need new homes in America to increase the supply of homes because we've had a shortage of homes long before our southern borders were invaded by illegals who were invited here by the Biden-Harris administration, led by Barter Zor, Kamala Harris. So how are we doing in organically increasing the supply of homes in this country? Not so good, but improving. The NAHB Home Builder Sentiment Index for November came in better than expected and rose 2 points month over month to 43, though that is still below 50, which is considered to be an optimistic level. The present situation component was up 2 points to 47, inching toward that number of 50. The expectation side was up then and above 50 for the second month. Excited about Kamala's promise to build 3 million new homes. Is that what's causing all of this? Although we do need them, I'm not for the Harris solution that involves inefficiently using taxpayer money to bolster the private markets. Bolstering the markets is the job of the private markets. And they will come through when it's smart to, when business conditions are right, because they are unburdened by what has been, which is the government sticking their noses where they don't belong. Sorry, I just stole a line from Kamala Harris, but used it in a much different way than she does. I assume private businesses are not excited about Kamala's housing plans either. Smart business people will be very hesitant to yoke up with the government with their handout for government money and be subject to all of the strings that come with their incentives. Keep in mind, there is no such thing as government money. That is taxpayer money that the government is in charge of deploying. Did we not learn anything from the financial crisis, the great financial crisis from 07 through 09, about how bad and disastrous government intervention in the private markets has been? Government requiring private businesses to make bad loans that ended up doing exactly what bad loans do, blowing up in their faces and creating a need for a government bailout. The increasing optimism of home builders is likely due to the Fed's decision to officially enter rate-cutting mode last month. So how are mortgage rates doing? The average contract interest rate for the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage with conforming balances soared to 6.52% in the week ending October the 11th. That is the highest in about 2 months. The average rate for the 30-year government loan, mortgage-backed loan by the Federal Housing Administration was at 6.42, up 20 basis points. This caused mortgage rates to rise for the third straight period. Why? Because mortgage rates, mostly the price of the 10-year, which we know is higher, because there is fear that the Fed may not cut as much and or as quickly as the market is hoping, after the hotter than expected inflation print that was really kind of swept under the rug for this last month, reinforced bets that the Fed will lower borrowing costs a space. The National Association of Home Builders said this: despite the beginning of the Fed's easing cycle, many prospective home buyers remain on the sideline waiting for lower interest rates. We are forecasting uneven declines for mortgage interest rate in the coming quarters, which will improve housing demand but place stress on building lot supplies due to tight lending conditions for development and construction loans. The report also indicated that prospective buyers are still on the sidelines as buyer traffic was well under 50 again at 29. Rates are the determining factor. If home supply doesn't increase because current homeowners can't unlock their golden handcuffs meaning that these current homeowners have mortgage rates so low they won't put their houses on the market in exchange for a higher mortgage loan. Mortgage rates at the end of the Trump administration were at 2.85%. Mortgage rates have gone up over 100% under the Harris-Biden administration. 60% of homeowners with mortgages have rates under 4%. That's why we have golden handcuffs. 90% of current mortgage holders have rates under 60%. In addition, housing starts this morning and permits came out just this morning. Single-family starts rose by 27,000 month over month. That's a 5-month high. For what is planned to come, we look at building permits. Single-family permits rose a touch by 3,000 to 970,000. Builders are trying to replenish the inventory of single-family homes, but at the same time, they are still facing pricing pushback on the affordability side. We also got weekly unemployment numbers that came in this morning. Yesterday morning. All in all, unemployment data is exhibiting a slow fade into negative territory. Earnings season has continued. We'll get some highlights later. So far this week, the markets are, the S&P is flat, the Dow's up 1%, and the NASDAQ is down 0.5%. Coming next week, we have a fairly quiet economic news week. We get durable goods, and earnings season will continue. Now that you are in the know about the recent and upcoming financial issues, we hope that you will learn more about how we can help you integrate those issues into your own stewardship. Find out more about how we can help you defund darkness with our biblically responsible investment strategy. I'm your host, Shana Burt. We've got to take a break, but we're going to be back with more financial issues right after this.
We are indeed facing into the wind of this cultural holocaust to try to provide loving, compassionate, Christ-centered answers to these women. The greatest thing they need is the ability to make sound judgment decisions in their life, and that comes from the Lord Jesus Christ, a heart change that only He can bring. So we're evangelists to these women on behalf of the Financial Issues audience, and helping them to be able to move forward with wisdom in their lives when they come in, not just to save the life of their baby, but also to save the soul of the mom and the baby eventually as well. You know, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's certainly another thing, and so encouraging to see the pro-life ministry, a financial issue stewardship ministry, take a stand on this thing and do something so effective as we've done.
Yes, sir.
Go to financialissues.org/preborn to learn more about preborn.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Well, thanks for hanging with us on Rapid Fire Friday today, folks. Darlene was very kind to get me my visual aid here, the Spineless Weasels Tumbler, which is our prize for today. First two callers. We have limited time to talk today on the phones because we have a special treat for you later on in the show. But the phone lines are open right now. So if you want to get your hands on this awesome tumbler, get a call in 610-363-1110. Speaking of spineless weasels, Shana, we are actually in election season, as we've been talking about. We've got an election coming up in just over 2 weeks. And so from now until the election, we're going to do sort of a little prize giveaway. We want all of our listeners to have the opportunity to get their hands on really what I think might be the best piece of FISM merch that we have. Once again, it's to show the righteous disdain for the spineless weasels, as our founder Dan Celia used to call them, criticizing both sides of the aisle. So we are, for the next 2 weeks, a donation of any amount to the ministry will get you a limited edition FISM Spineless Weasels t-shirt. We have plenty in stock, so we probably have your size. Make sure that you do that over the next 2 weeks, and we will send you a Spineless Weasels t-shirt. And if you do it early on, hopefully you're doing it today. Once you hear this call to action here, you could potentially even wear that t-shirt as you go to the voting booth on November the 5th to show your disdain. So anyway, we'll be doing that, Shana, for the next couple of weeks.
Great idea.
Yep.
Well, let's turn to the Word of God for some
Sounds
wisdom.
Good. Sounds good.
For our stewardship verse of the day, it comes from 1 Peter 2:13-15. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be as to the emperor or to governors, as sent by him to punish those who do evil and praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good, you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Well, the Bible describes foolish people as those who deny the existence and or the sovereign authority of God, as those who consider themselves right in their own eyes, those who despise wisdom and instruction, and those who make light of sin. As I read that list, the parade of fools runs through my mind, and lots of them are elected officials who would have never been elected by a God-fearing people. The great news is that we live in a constitutional republic where we, the people, get to elect our leaders. And in very short order, as Seth just mentioned, we get to exercise that right again, and we should. Perhaps the reason that we, the people of the U.S., have elected such fools is because we, the people of God, have fallen down on our duty to make God known to the next generation. Or the reason could be that we haven't taken our values into the voting booth with us. My vote this year will be cast to make America, America again, to return to the core values that this country was built upon. What do you think, Seth?
Amen. We certainly need that, Shana. We prayed that this morning in Bible study, by the way, that our country would come back to what made us great in the first place, reminding that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. This passage speaks pretty heavily to our duties in the civic space, Shana. I think if people say, the Bible doesn't talk about voting, I would beg to differ, and I think this passage is one of those that talks about it. While we are to submit to human authority, that authority God has placed it above us, to be sure, we also need to use our influence in the civic space for good, as this verse says, to put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. And so I really do believe this is the biblical argument for being a good steward of your vote, that with the freedom God has given us, we can put to silence this ignorance of fools by partaking in this aspect of the human institution that we live under. So I would hope that every Christian would do this and would make your vote an act of worship for the glory of God.
Amen. I agree with that. Every good and perfect gift is from above. And the United States, I believe, was a gift to God's people. I don't care who wants to rewrite history and say that America was not a Christian nation. You can go back and read through the history about how this nation came in to being, and it was done with men who feared the Lord, mostly with men who feared the Lord and who prayed during their organizational meetings and the founding, the meetings where they created the founding documents and principles of this country. So progressivism is based on the notion that human beings are basically good, and we evolve to being better and better and better. We progress, right? And we have to throw out the ideas of the past. That's where Kamala Harris gets this, what could be unburdened by what has been. She is slamming the founders of this country. What has been was that this country was founded on the principles of God, fearing God, the laws of God. That's what this country was founded on. So she wants the future to be antique book of laws and rules that are no longer valid in modern history. Right. So, wow, the phone lines are lining up. I wonder if I said something.
Must be. People want their spineless weasels tumbler, Shana, as I knock it over here. My apologies to our radio audience. Yeah, but Shana, you are exactly right. I mean, what a wise comment to realize, Kamala is trying to unburden us from the greatness of this country, what we once had. Right.
Right.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, it's directly opposite of Trump's campaign slogan to make America great again. And, I would go further in saying that for America to really be great again, we have to return to our roots. Yeah. We have to do that. And we as Christians have the responsibility to do that. So when you walk into the voting booth this year, and I hope that you will not let the fact that we don't have a perfect candidate running, I hope that you will not let that fact sway you, that you will walk into the voting booth and that you will check the box for the candidate who stands for your values. And
Amen.
Your values as a Christian can't be to allow the murder of unborn babies. It cannot be to allow the pushing of the LGBTQ lie that says that human beings get to choose their own gender, that the gender that they were assigned at birth by God may not really be the right thing. God may have made a mistake on it, and, you get to decide whether you are the same sex as your DNA shows you.
And children get to decide it too. Children as young as 5 and 6. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Maybe we should just let children decide if they want to smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol
or drive
or drive.
Right.
I mean, if we're going down that
just give
route,
them a phone book, they'll be fine.
If they're that wise, we need to let them make all those decisions. So it's just absolutely silly that if we recognize that children are not able to make those kinds of decisions, why? I mean, they can't even decide if they were offered green beans or candy. What are they going to choose?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, come on.
Exactly.
We all know that from firsthand experience.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, let's see if we can get to the phone lines.
Sounds
We've got Alan calling from Texas. Hi, Alan. You're live on Financial Issues.
Well, good morning, Shana. I have a stock that I may have missed a sale order on, possibly. I don't get to listen as often as I used to, and I'm really wondering. I've had a lot of growth in the stock, and it's really been the thing that's been driving my portfolio growth. And I'm wondering if I should hang on to it or sell, since there has been a lot of growth, and or what.
Yeah. So the stock that you mentioned, and I don't know if we have the number for it, Seth, if you've got that handy or not.
TE91.
TE91. Okay, that's what I thought it was, but I didn't want to say. Okay, so you have not missed any sell alert on it. We have not sent one out. We've talked about it a little bit, but nothing specifically was sent out in alert, because it just is kind of a rule of thumb for our strategy, is that when you get overextended in a certain stock, we know when that stock makes up a bigger percentage of your portfolio than it should, then it makes sense to trim some of it. So we won't issue a sell alert for that kind of thing, because we don't know if all partners own it or what price they bought it at. But, looking at the history of the buy list, I would venture to say that most partners are in the same boat that you're in, Alan. They're extremely extended. Now, this particular company is a market leader. They are what is driving the AI boom right now, and they are expected to continue. So I wouldn't be in favor of you selling all of it. But if you need to trim that back, if you bought that position and maybe you took a 3% stake, it made up 3% of your overall portfolio when you got into it, but now because it's done better than most things in your portfolio, maybe now it makes up 10% or 15% of your portfolio. I think there's good wisdom in paring that back, because I do expect it to continue to perform well. But again, you don't want to have too much exposure in your portfolio just to one company.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the advice, and I hope you have a nice day and a good weekend.
You too.
You too,
Thanks
Alan.
for calling,
Thanks,
Alan.
buddy.
So, good stuff, folks. Well, we are working on, that is one company I would hate to have to sell, but, we are committed to biblically responsible investing. And if any of the companies that we have suggested that you consider buying start to screen dirty, if they start to engage in activities that don't line up with our Christian values, we will not hesitate to issue a sell alert. So in the particular company that we are talking about right now is still technically clean. So but there are some things that we have noticed that the company may be considering a drift into territory that does not line up with our values. So we're working on a petition right now for that particular company and for a couple of other good, solid companies that have been on our buy list in the past that also may be exhibiting some weakness in this area. And what we want to do is we just want to tell them, hey, don't go down. Don't get dragged into the culture war. Stay out of it. Just you're a leader in what you do. You're operating in excellence. Focus all of your time, attention, and resources on just continuing in that vein of excellence, and forget about the culture war. Just stay out of it, because you have shareholders. You may have shareholders that are telling you that you need to do these things, but you have a lot of shareholders that will be very disappointed if you do and won't stand for it. So be on the lookout for that. We'll bring you more information as it becomes available for us. Folks, if you listen on a version that only carries the short version of the show, we wish you a farewell today, but we implore you, make sure you find a way to watch the entire show today, because we have Debbie Wuthnow with the IVoter Guide coming on later in the show. For everybody else, stick around. We'll be back with more financial issues.
It's easy to get caught up in the rush and forget about what really matters. Too often, we invest in stocks without knowing what they stand for. When your investments, your money speaks for you, because biblical values matter, even when investing. Learn how to invest biblically and responsibly. Visit financialissues.org to learn more. That's financialissues.org.
Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
If anybody's listening, thinking about joining, there's nothing like it. It's been great. I have peace of mind. I feel confident continuing to work. There's just a lot of things that y'all have added to my financial peace.
You guys are the man. So I encourage everybody, partner, get in there and watch the videos. Portfolio after portfolio, you hear the stories. It works. And you guys make it possible. And I thank you for that.
Married couples or even engaged, as you're coming together, working on your finances, God has blessed us incredibly, and it's been incredible to see what He's done in our lives. Just want to thank you, Financial Issues.
As a novice investor, which I am, and I'm certainly learning so much from y'all, thank you so much. Y'all take the fear out of it. Then my portfolio is just doing great.
You've really encouraged us, and I know you've probably encouraged so many others as well.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner. That's financialissues.org/join.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Today is Rapid Fire Friday, and we've got some callers in the queue, so let's get to it. We've got Mark is calling from Mississippi. Hi, Mark. You're live on Financial Issues.
Good morning, Shana.
Good morning.
I recently invested $10,000 into FP90 at $25.28 a share, and they're calling that. And I'm not sure if I need to sell it or wait and get the dividend and let them call it, or the strategy there for that. And then also, is E44 a hard sell? And I'm going to let go and let you answer those for me. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, thanks for that question, man. You know, Shana, we actually got a similar question about FP90 from Gary on Ask Shana, as saying that the preferred stock's been redeemed as of September 30th, can still be purchased for an 8.25% return. So, similar question there.
Okay. So, I have not seen that one is being called yet. I'll have to dig into that a little bit, but the price now is above where you bought it. Either way, I would hold it, to get the interest on it, and I would hold it until it gets called, whether that is here in short order or further down the road. We don't really look to get price appreciation on preferred stocks. It's the yield that we're after, and currently the yield is still 7.3%. So it is trading at a bit of a premium. Now your personal yield is going to be higher than that because you bought it at a lower price than where it is right now. As far as E44 goes, so E44 is being acquired by another energy company that I don't have the call number for, but it has been on our buy list in the past. So there is a possibility that partners could own both of them. I'll see if I can find that.
It might be E22, Shana.
Did you? Okay, does it start with a C?
I think so, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So E22 then is acquiring E44. So if you have both of those two positions, what I would do is add up the two positions together and see what percentage of your overall portfolio that would make up. If you add the two together and that, when they combine, that's going to make up, say, more than 5% of your portfolio, then I would consider selling one or the other. Now, you can look at where you own them and try to be smart from a tax perspective as to how you do it. For example, if you owned one of them in an IRA and you owned one of them in a taxable account, I would sell the one in the IRA. That way you don't have to incur capital gains tax, and you would just keep your position in your non-qualified account. So if you don't have the other one, you could consider keeping it. Just know that it'll be swapped out for shares of the other company.
Very good. Thank you, Shana.
All right. Great question.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, let's go to Billy. Billy's calling us from Georgia. Hi, Billy. You're live on Financial Issues.
Good morning, Shana and Seth. I just have a general question, and my question is, when would it be proper to average up, assuming everything is in place? In other words, you're not going over the 3 to 5% of your portfolio, and your allocation base would still be in place.
Yeah. So, if you have a position that you've bought some years ago, Dan used to always refer as putting in bottoms, meaning that the longer that you own a company, the less likely it is to ever return to where you bought in at, and it's even less likely that it'll go below that, so you won't have opportunities really to average down anymore. So, it's, when you look at buying more shares at a higher price than you originally bought them for, that does raise your average basis on them, but it can be an okay thing to do. I would like for you to do it when and if they are on the buy list, but if it's a position you already have and you don't want to add more positions into that particular sector, then you could do it. So if, the percentage, maybe you originally took a 3% stake in that company. Maybe it's lower than that now because there are other companies that have outperformed it, or, maybe you've added money into your portfolio. So you're below that target, then you could certainly do it. And I wouldn't worry about the price.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your input.
All right, Billy. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Billy.
Great question.
Okay, God bless.
You too,
You
buddy.
too. All right. What do we have as far as questions go?
Yeah, we got Menda here. Menda on Ask Shana. Yeah, a couple minutes here. Menda is asking Shana, through my brokerage, one of the top 2, unfortunately, I cannot buy the Israel fund. I presume I need to buy through Timothy, but I'm surprised because I have a lot of Timothy funds that I bought through this brokerage. What's up with this? Do you know, Shana? And she doesn't mention the top 2, but context may be able to give us some clues there.
Yeah. Okay. So I asked this question to Brian Mumbert with the Timothy plan because there's always seems to be a little bit of conflicting information about, which brokerage firms do which. Now, I operate in private practice, so I don't use any of the discount brokerages, so I don't know firsthand. But what he told me was that Schwab will allow the purchase of the large mid-cap value, the small-cap value, international high-yield bond, and they have been trying to get Israel onto their platform, but they're just, what he said is that they're not in a financial position with that fund yet to quite justify it. E-Trade, he said that all funds should be available, and Fidelity, he said that all funds should be available, but he even hears that there's an issue sometimes with purchasing that. So what I would do, I don't know if changing discount brokerages is something that you really want to mess with, but you could explore that option by, contacting one or two of the other ones that we've heard will allow you to buy it. Or you could just, I know it's not exactly efficient to have accounts in multiple places, but you could, if all else fails, you could establish a position directly with the Timothy plan so that you can be sure that you can get the shares there.
Awesome, Shannon. Next one up we have is Brett, 66 years old. He's saying, with all the TE stocks on the buy list, will they all benefit from the AI technology boom going on currently, chips for cell phones, laptops, etc.? What do you think for Brett?
Yeah, so that is a dominant theme in our analyst meeting. It's the talk of any financial news program if you are watching that kind of thing. So yes, lots of them do, but it's not necessarily a requirement. There are, I guess, companies in the technology space that aren't necessarily directly related to the AI boom, but lots of them are. So that is definitely a dominant theme there. Excuse me.
Yeah. Awesome. Probably don't think we have time for any more questions here, Shana, before we hear from Craig Haugaard with the Ag.
All right, that sounds good. So Craig's going to be coming in. He's going to tell us what's happening in that space there. I think we're going to close our phone lines because we have a special treat coming up for you in the next segment. We've got Debbie Wuthnow. She is with the IVoter Guide. It's a really neat thing. It's a nonpartisan organization, and they just collect and present data for voters so that they can see how the candidates stack up, not only in federal elections, but all the way down to the school board elections in some cases. Well, folks, here comes Craig Haugaard. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with Debbie.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for October 18th. Of course, saw more export sales yesterday as Mexico has been very active buyer these last few sessions. In the overnight trade, we saw December futures drop below $4 per bushel for the first time in over a month, and that attracted some speculative buying, which helped support the market and push us to a higher close. We ended up the day with December corn 2 cents higher at 4.06 3/4. Soybeans saw some solid export sales, which helped support the market. The U.S. currently has an advantage of between 8 and 15 cents per bushel over Brazil for soybeans into Asia, and we're certainly seeing buyers take advantage of that. At the closing bell, November beans were 8 3/4 cents higher at 9.88 3/4. Wheat hitched a ride on corn's coattails and also received some help from Russia as we saw Russian FOB values climb for the first time in 3 days when they increased their offers by $3 per metric ton. At the closing bell, Minneapolis December wheat was 8 cents higher at 6.28 3/4. Kansas City City rose by 7.25 cents, closing at $5.96. And Chicago was 4.5 cents higher at $5.89.5. Cotton futures continue to chop sideways. Yesterday at the closing bell, we had December futures 49 points lower as they ended the day at 72.85. Livestock futures were mixed. December live cattle futures were 42.5 cents lower, $186.62.5 per hundredweight. November feeder cattle rose by 25 cents as they ended the session at $245.75 per hundred. December lean hog futures dropped by a whopping 2.5 cents as they closed out today at $77.67.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures moved up towards the upper end of their recent trading range. At the closing bell, we had November futures 30 points higher at $21.46. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Are you a Christian seeking to align your investments with your faith? I'm Shana Burt, host of the program Financial Issues. During our program, we share valuable information about the financial issues of the day, including how markets and the economy are moving and how public companies are behaving, helping you to make wise decisions with your investments and the money that the Lord has blessed you with. Using biblical standards, we provide you with valuable financial insight based upon Scripture, making it easy for you to invest in a way that aligns with your values. I can assume that most of you have investments in a 401k or IRA, but what I am sure of is most of you have no clue that the companies in your mutual funds may be funding the LGBTQ agenda, pornography, abortion, the list goes on and on. By listening to Financial Issues, you will learn how to get rid of those investments that are dishonoring God.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner today.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common, the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. So I'm so excited. We have my friend Debbie Wuthnow back with us. She is with the IVoter Guide, and it's been about a year since we had Debbie on the program. But welcome, Debbie, and would you just remind our listeners who you are and the purpose and the mission of IVoter Guide?
Well, my name is Debbie Wuthnow. I'm the president of IVoterGuide.com, and we are a Christian ministry with the mission to equip the church to vote wisely, especially faith-based voters, to know what's on their ballot, to understand where each candidate stands. So our lane is to research candidates and provide an online voter guide looking at what candidates have done, not just what they say they're going to do, and a deep research into what candidates have done with their pocketbook, if they've held office, how they voted. They get to answer our questionnaire, and then we have an army of volunteers that help us assign a rating to every candidate from far left to far right, and everywhere in between, to give voters just a snapshot of the political philosophy of each candidate. And it's easy to use. It's at iVoterGuide.com. You enter your address, your voting address, and you just see the races and candidates are on your ballot, that little gas gauge, and then you can click in to see all the data for yourself.
That's great. My sound is cutting out, but I heard bits and pieces of what you said, and I think I know it. So I'm glad you're sharing it with the listeners. So pardon me if I say the same thing over and over again. But we have listeners in just about every state. So let's focus on the presidential election. As Christians, we believe life is precious. We believe murder is wrong, and that we should stand up for those who don't yet have a voice. We believe that gender is determined lovingly and purposely by our Creator, and that marriage is sacred and between one man, one woman for life. Can you tell us, what will we find in the IVoter Guide about the candidates for president on these issues?
Well, the life issue has been, it's not as clear a difference as it was in the last presidential election. We know obviously that the Democratic candidate for president supports abortion to birth and even beyond. She's blatantly pro-choice in that abortion in position. President Trump was a very pro-life president, but there has been some weakening in that front. So he, had said he thought that a 6-week ban in Florida was too early. You will see some other quotes that he's had that he's kind of pulling back a little bit from his strongly pro-life position. I even heard, Pastor Gary Hamrick out of Virginia said that we do not have a strongly pro-life candidate on the ballot. We have one who is more supporting of life and one that's definitely against life. I almost call it the candidate of death. But you can read all of the different quotes and what they've said and the votes and what they've done. President Trump, former President Trump, will restrain evil more with regards to life. But that's what you'll find at iVoter Guide is it's as much data as we could find on what they've done, but it's not as strong as I would personally prefer my presidential candidate to be on that life issue.
Right. And you know what? Those are some of the same issues that concern me and I think a lot of other Christians. And we've seen some data recently that is concerning to me. When we think about the last election and how many evangelical Christians didn't go vote in the last election, we're seeing that as many as 104 million people of faith, including 32 million self-identified Christians who regularly attend church, are unlikely to vote in this year's presidential election. That number, of course, is extrapolated from two different surveys that were conducted, and the most common reason was lack of interest. And over half said that they dislike the major candidates. So what do we make of this? How would you encourage Christians who are considering not voting?
Well, I think that, when they talk about that lack of interest, and they don't understand, I think that they've not been taught the importance of being engaged. I think there's been a lack of teaching in the churches that they attend, that it is a biblical responsibility to engage in culture. There's many churches who will say that's politics and we don't do politics, we just talk about Jesus. Well, Jesus was engaged in politics. He was in the public square. He was, in sending out his apostles to speak to the magistrates and to travel. I mean, he was definitely engaging with the culture. So I think it's a lack of a solid teaching on our biblical responsibility to vote. And, it has gotten messy and very polarized, and people just don't want to engage in that. There's the cancel culture going on social media. People are self-canceling themselves because it's just so at the extremes, really. We've lost the ability to dialogue. And I think to avoid that, people are just saying, I'm not going to participate. George dove a little bit deeper in what it might take to get those people to vote. And I think I take some hope in that. I'm discouraged by how many who say they won't vote, but there is hope because he said that he explored the ways to get people to turn out and vote. There wasn't any one big magic pill. None of them were over 16 or 17%, but two of them were, if their church taught them that voting was a biblical responsibility, they would be more likely to vote. That points me to what I just said. One of the other reasons was if they received an unbiased, objective briefing about what each of the candidates supports or opposes, they would be more likely to vote. I think some people vote even though they're dissatisfied with politics because they don't have really information they could trust about the candidates, or an unbiased source of information. And that's what I take hope in, because iVoter Guide is that unbiased source of information that voters can use at the presidential level and all down the ballot.
It sure is, because I've taken a look at it myself. In fact, I pulled up my personal. You can go on, you can punch in your address, and it'll give you all information about all of the candidates in the elections that you're going to be voting in. Well, election integrity is a big issue. Can we be confident that we will see a fair election take place nationwide on November 5th?
I can't guarantee it. I know that there have been great strides that have been made since too in tightening up voter rolls, in kind of closing some of the loopholes. The goal being that it's easy to vote but hard to cheat. And there are states that have been making those moves. You'll hear in the news that, the Virginia governor is working on cleaning up and removing some non-citizens that are registered to vote. That motor voter loophole has, because a non-citizen can get a driver's license. And when you get a driver's license, you're registered to vote, but yet citizens aren't supposed to vote. So there are governors and there are states that are cleaning up some of those loopholes and making it harder to cheat. So work has been done. There are still holes, and there are some states that have more holes than others. I'm not a huge fan of mail-in voting. That is I think, the biggest challenge that we have because of the way that can be abused with drop boxes that aren't monitored, and there's no signature verification, and they just mail ballots out to a bunch of people. So there are states that I think we should be asking good questions of was it a free and fair election. There are other states though that have tightened it down, and I think that so all in all, it will be better than it has been in 2020. We just have to be ever vigilant, and for those of us who have the time to work in the polls, to be a poll watcher, to get more eyeballs on the system, to be working and engaging and cleaning it up. I will say that there is more early voting that is happening, and I would be a proponent of doing that. It has many reasons why it's, I personally, in person, early voting is my preference. If I'm busy on election day, it makes sure that I've cast my ballot. It kind of spreads out any opportunities for shenanigans that might happen or calamities, even weather on election day that would stop people from getting to the polls. So we're making progress. It's not 100%, but it's better than it was.
That's great. It's interesting that you mentioned what's happening in Virginia because, you have the governor there trying to clean up the voter rolls, and you have the Biden-Harris administration suing them to keep them from try to keep them from doing that. And I think that speaks volumes about their agenda. We just have a couple of minutes left, and I want you to tell us about on your IVoter website, there is a Pray for Leaders section of the IVoter Guide. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that's a really great way that we as Christians can get involved.
Oh, it's a wonderful way. God commands us in 2 Timothy to pray for those who are in authority over us so that we can have quiet and peaceful lives. So we need to be praying no matter which candidates win at any level of office. We need to pray for those God has put into power and authority over us. Whether we supported them or not, we need to pray for them. So IVoter Guide has a feature called Pray for Leaders, and it is a daily email, 5 days, just during the weekday, that we send you one of your personal elected officials by name with their photo, but we also send you a devotional and a guided prayer for each day that's different. And it's a rotation of 2 weeks. So through those 10 days, you will be praying for the president. You'll be praying for the Speaker of the House. You'll be praying for your governor and your senator and your state senator and your state representative. And there's one day where we even say, just pray for your school board. So I find it not only a great way to be biblically strong in praying for those and fulfilling the command to pray for God, those people God has put in authority over us, but it helps me to know who they are and pray for them by name, because how many of us even know who our state representative is? So it's a great way to be biblically engaged and lifting up those that God's placed above us.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Debbie. We're out of time. Gosh, we could have you for so much longer. Folks, I hope that you will share this clip, that you will share this with all of your Christian friends who are considering not voting. Well, folks, that's all for us today. We hope that you'll come back next week because, Lord willing, we'll be here to remind you time's getting short, the Master's coming back, and we want to help you be found a good and faithful steward. I'm your host, Shana Burt. We'll see you again next week.
we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.